Hi, Todd Martin here. In this combined Tai Chi Code, walking code video, I'm going to continue my series of Tai Chi techniques. We're working on the Tai Chi 24 form. In my previous videos, you've already seen parting the wild horse's mane, followed by crane cools its wings. In this video, we're going to continue on with brush knee. You're going to hear me use the terminology of torsional rotation and concordant rotation throughout the video. I'm not going to explain those again with any detail, but what I'm going to do is place some written information right after this intro, so I don't have to explain them again. You can pause on that written description as long as you want to get familiar with it so you can understand the concept as I'm talking through it when I go through the movements. Let's take you back through the introduction. I'm going to begin with the opening. I'm just going to run through this very quickly to get us to where we left off. We did parting the wild horse's mane 3 times. I stepped up and we did crane cools its wings. And this is where we leave off and where we begin brush knee. In crane cools its wings, I'm going to have flexion of my left hip, meaning my left hip is trying to lift up, and I have torsional rotation on the right side of my core, meaning my upper torso on the right is turning to the left, my lower torso on the right is turning to the right and tucking my pelvis and rotating my pelvis to the right at the same time. That's what results in this final motion of crane cools its wings. Now we're going to drop into brush knee. The first segment, I'm going to sink my weight. I'm going to lower my right hand and turn the palm up and raise the left hand with the palm still down. Then I'm going to turn the body and retract the leg, turn back, bringing my palm towards my ear. I'm going to step out in a shoulder width stance on my heel. I'm going to push down and parry a punch with my left hand. And then I'm going to strike forward with the palm down the center line. Now let me demonstrate brush knee starting from crane cools its wings. Now let's go through the core movements that are making that happen. Flexion of my left hip, torsional rotation on the right. To begin the motion, I am simply going to extend my left hip, and that is going to bring me to this position. So I am now reaching forward with the right side of the upper torso, reaching that right arm forward. I'm pulling backwards with my right lower torso, and I'm pushing back or pushing down and back with my left hip. That's what brings me from here to here. Extension of my left hip. Now I'm going to flex my left hip and turn my upper torso to the right. That's going to retract my left leg. It's going to turn my torso to the right. My left arm is going to be reaching out. My right arm is going to be back. And then I'm going to complete this motion by turning my upper torso back to the left. That's going to circle my palm to the ear. The whole time I'm active with my lower torso on the right, tucking my pelvis and rooting the weight. The final position is going to be here in an empty stance with the toe of my left leg just touching the ground. Let's go again from the beginning. I'm going to extend my left hip with torsional rotation on the right. I'm going to flex my left hip with concordant rotation going clockwise. Now I'm going to turn the upper torso back counterclockwise. So now I have torsion on the right, flexion of my left hip. Now I am going to change the torsional rotation from the right side to the left side by reaching to the right with my upper torso and tucking the pelvis on the left. That's going to step me out onto my left heel. I'm now going to extend my hip on the left, causing me to push down. So I now have extension of my left hip, torsional rotation on the left, and then I'm going to reverse that for the strike. Extension of my right hip, torsional rotation on the right. In the striking action, there are two simultaneous core rotations going on at the same time, and that's what gives the energy to the strike. It is not simply a twisting of the body from right to left. What I am actually doing is two twists. I'm taking my upper torso, which was turning to the right, and I'm going to turn it to the left. And at the same time, I'm going to take my lower torso, which was turning to the left with my pelvis, and I'm going to turn it to the right. The result is going to appear like I'm moving straight forward as my upper torso turns counterclockwise and my lower torso turns clockwise. That combined rotation gives the ultimate action of the strike in brush knee. So at the end of brush knee, my lower abs and my pelvis are turning backwards to the right. And then my upper torso and my right arm are turning forwards to the left. That's the final strike. As I do that, my right palm is going to strike forward and my left palm is going to brush down by my left knee. Now we're going to pivot to move into brush knee right. I'm going to flex my left hip, continuing torsion on the right, and that's going to pivot my left foot out. Now I'm going to extend my right hip with torsion on the left. So I'm going to turn my upper torso to the right. I'm going to tuck my pelvis on the left, and then I'm going to go back into flexion of the right hip and concordant counterclockwise rotation. Now torsional rotation on the left, bringing my palm to my ear, stepping out with torsional rotation on the right, brushing down with extension of the right hip, torsional rotation on the right, striking forward and brushing the palm with extension of my left hip and torsion on the left. Then we're going to repeat the pivot, change weight, collect the right leg, circle the palm to the ear, step out on the heel, push down, push forward. Now I'm going to briefly go through the Tai Chi 8 techniques that we see in each one of these motions. We have split with flexion of the left hip. We have pluck with extension of the left hip. We have elbow strike with flexion of the left hip. We have split with flexion of the left hip. We have press with flexion of the left hip. We have push with extension of the left hip. And we have push with extension of the right hip. Those are all of your core movements that are going to be used in brush knee. Now I'm going to describe very briefly what we use these movements for in walking. Normally when we walk, if we're walking at a normal strolling pace, and I reviewed this in the Parting of the Wild Horses main video, when I take my step, changing weight to my left leg, when I'm going to swing through with the right, I'm using torsion on the left and I'm flexing my right hip. I used that same action when I did parting the wild horse's mane, and I did torsion on the left, flexion of my right hip prior to bringing my leg into empty stance. That's the same motion, and I'll do it this way. If I was going to take a step, I would do the same thing, and then I would lift off to begin walking. That is the core movement that we use in a normal step. If we're going to be power walking, or if we're going to walk up a hill, that flexion of my rear leg is not enough to transfer weight if I'm on a slope. On a flat ground, I can simply lift my right leg forward by flexing my right hip as I use the torsion on the left to pull the body forward. If, however, I'm going up a slope, that does not provide enough energy to move up the hill, and what I need to do is extend my right hip as I use torsion on the left, and that propels the body up the hill with enough energy, and then I can begin to change weight to step forward. That energy is going to be the same that we use when we transition from the pivot in brush knee to the transition, where I'm going to extend my right hip with torsion on my left and then transfer to the single leg balance position in empty stance, instead of flexing my right hip. You'll see what happens if I flex my right hip instead of extending it. Now I'm going to flex my right hip as I would have done in parting the wild horse's mane, and then I turn and I get to this position. I didn't get to this position here that I want to get to in brush knee. I have to extend the hip, which gets my body progressed a little bit further than flexion and has a different energy to it. Now when I flex my right hip, I get a full collection of the right leg in front of the body, and then I turn the upper torso to get to the final position before stepping out. Please like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber, and click on the bell to get notifications for my future videos. Thank you very much for watching.